What's up, everybody? John Eric Poli here with My MMA News, and today I'm pleased to be joined by one of the best coaches in the sport. Pleased today to be joined by Eric Nicksick. Eric, thanks for being here, man. I know it's been a busy year for Xtreme Couture so far as the early stages of 2023 continue to roll through, so I really appreciate you making time for this interview. Thanks for being here, man.
No problem, John. Thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem at all. Let's get started with probably the biggest news, definitely in the sport probably so far, and it probably has to be the biggest related to your gym. That's Francis Ngannou. Everybody just learned recently that he was released by the UFC. Kind of shocked everybody. I know you obviously have the firsthand knowledge. You were involved with some of the process there. Kind of just explain a little bit about everything that kind of took place. And more importantly, I mean, how's Francis handling all of this? Because he's the person that's mainly involved with it, of course.
Well, Francis has handled it great. I feel like he's just, out shopping his options and enjoying the free agent process right now. He's actually in Saudi Arabia. He met with Ronaldo and, a bunch of guys out in Saudi. So he's going to be just fine. So right now it's just really about just finding the best fit for him and figuring out what he wants to do. So when he gets back to Vegas at the end of the month, we'll all sit down as a team and just kind of, lay out our options and see what he wants to do. I think that's the most important. Just the whole team is on the same page and we understand what's what.
And I'm sure you were probably in on some of like whatever negotiation periods were going on there. Just kind of take us through, everything that was kind of laid out there with the UFC and really just how the UFC handles it in general. Like, are they very professional with these negotiations? I know it seems like, especially with this Francis deal, a lot of fans out there are under the impression that, the UFC was really crappy towards Francis, that they didn't treat him right here. Obviously, again, you have the firsthand knowledge here.
Well, I don't think that they were crappy or didn't treat him right. I think that, what Francis was asking for goes against a lot of their business model and what they've done in the past. And it wasn't that Francis was like, hey, I want you guys to completely go against everything that you do and meet all my demands. He was hoping to get like one or two things met within those demands. And, they weren't able to budge on any of them. And then, there was some issues with I think, protection of the contract that was really stood out to him, meaning, if you were to fight John Jones and if you were to lose to John Jones, where does that leave him in the contract thereafter? And he just wasn't happy with the numbers that they were presenting to him if you were to lose. So, we're talking about one of the greatest mixed martial artists to ever do it. So he was looking for his protection. Yeah, the number to fight John was great, but what happens after that? Where do you bump to? What do you knock down to? And that didn't make any sense to him. So there was just so many little things like that were hanging up on the contract. I felt the UFC was doing their best that they could on their end, and Francis just wasn't budging on some of his demands either. Hoping that they can meet in the middle, and they just really couldn't do it. So I think it's just best for both of them to go out and explore other options.
Now, it's funny, as you were mentioning that, this was immediately my thought in my head here. Now, I grew up mainly watching boxing before. I was in college when I got into really watching MMA, especially with the UFC. And I know my whole life watching boxing, there was always the champion had an automatic rematch clause if they were to lose. That's obviously not presented in UFC contracts. Really, I don't think it's in any real MMA contracts. Being a guy that's a coach, do you think that's something that's maybe something to look into? Like you were saying, like what would happen if Francis were to lose? Is he protected? Like, do you think that's something possible when you have a big star like Francis is to have these automatic rematch clauses maybe somewhere in the future?
Well, you would think so. You would think so in that regard. I don't know enough about these contracts to make a accurate comment about that. But, I just know when it came to my guy, those were things that he was worried about. He was like, man, if I lose this fight, I lose all of my protection. The number was drastically dropped. Yes, he was going to get paid great money to fight John Jones, but that was the next question was, well, what happens if you were to lose? Then it's like he's back down to the bottom again. The number was, I think, for him, and then the number that they gave just didn't seem fair. It didn't make any sense. Basically, he was going to get paid a little bit more than Alistair Overeem was being paid. So that kind of puts you in a projection of where he was at. And this is what Alistair was getting paid 7-8 years ago, a guy that Francis had knocked out. So, if you were to lose to John Jones, your drop in pay was quite exponential. So it didn't make any sense for him.
Yeah, and a lot goes into those contract negotiations too. It's crazy how these all kind of play themselves out. But I'm sure Francis has a lot of big things here on the horizon. I'm sure there's going to be a nice contract waiting for him somewhere. So looking forward to seeing what happens there. Let's talk now about a few other athletes. I want to start now at the beginning of this year. We'll start with the first UFC card. You had a few fighters on that card. I'm going to start with Dan Ige before we get into Sean Strickland in the main event. Dan, of course, right? Nice performance, gets a performance bonus for the knockout. And he was in desperate need of a win there. Just thoughts on that performance, and you think he get himself back in the mix? Because he's a guy, I mean, he fights the best of the best all the time. This was obviously a great eye-opening performance. It really a winner too, and he's right back in that picture.
No, I agree. And he's a kid that I think that every time out, win, lose, or draw, he's always going back and reworking himself and trying to be the best version of Danny Ige every time out. And that's what I love about the kid. You know, there's never been a fight that we've lost where I thought to myself, well, we could have done more throughout training camp. Sometimes you lose and the fighter's just better than you, and that's going to happen. So what can you do? Build on your skill set, get back to the gym, add new wrinkles, add new elements. And that's what exactly Dan did. And I think you saw that. Everyone saw that in that fight. So when you look at, Dan's strength of schedule, here's Josh Emmett, who he lost a close split, not split decision, but a close decision. And some people felt that he won. Now this guy's fighting for the title, right? So kind of puts you in an idea where what he's capable of doing. And against Calvin Kattar, he lost the decision to Calvin. Calvin won that fight pretty handedly, but we had our moments there within that fight. So I think people can kind of see where Dan stacks up with the featherweight division, and we only need to get better from here. And I think he has the talent and ability to do so.
All right, so now let's move on to Sean Strickland now, another big winner on that card in the main event. And first off, kudos to him, too, taking the fight on short notice. Was it 5 days notice or something like that? I mean, you got to give him a lot of credit there, just kind of essentially, I know he's always in the gym working, but essentially not knowing anything about the opponent, just going in there and throwing it down there. Thoughts on his performance to be able to go out and do something like that?
Yeah, no, I thought he did great. And I think that, Sean's just a different breed of cat. He loses his fight versus Jerry Cannonier. He literally takes 4 or 5 days off and he's right back in the gym helping out Puna and Brad Tavares get ready for their fights. So had it not been his level of professionalism and always staying in the gym, then I wouldn't have felt comfortable with him taking that fight. But, because he's always in the gym, sparring, training, he's keeping his weight down, he's staying active. We felt more comfortable as a coaching staff after breaking down the film and then wanting to take the fight at 205. So we didn't have to cut a whole lot of weight. Made perfect good sense to go in there and give it a shot. To me, it was a win-win.
Definitely. I have to ask this question too with Sean, and I'm sure a lot of the fans out there want to know this question too. What's it like having him in the gym? Because, I mean, he's obviously quite the media personality there. Everybody usually tunes in all of his press conferences. It's must-see TV.
It's actually night and day, and it's funny because he's on time. He's, the gym practice starts at 3:30. He's here at 3. He's on time. He's ready to go. He's prepared. He's lining up his sparring rounds correctly. He's getting the guys all, together, whether they're 85 groups or higher or lower, asking guys what rounds they need. Like when Ankalaev was fighting for the title, Sean was also fighting Cannonier. Him and Ankalaev made sure that they had their rounds lined up together or whatever. But, I think over the last few years, you've seen a guy grow as one of the leaders in the gym and almost like one of those captains, if you will. He's rough around the edges. He's going to say funny and weird shit. But as far as like a coach and a guy that I respect and a guy that I love having in the gym, I can't say one bad thing about the man. Now, some of the shit he says on interviews and on his social media, I don't even look at half that shit. And I told him that. I said, look, as far as I'm concerned as a coach, be a good teammate, show up on time, take care of your gym. There's days I'm in there mopping the mats and he'll be the first one to grab the mop bucket and help out. So he's a great dude, man. I don't have any complaints about him.
All right, so let's move on now to another fighter where this one here, it's an up-and-coming prospect in the gym, had a lot of momentum, unfortunately suffered an ACL injury. Talk about Casey O'Neill. She's now all cleared, ready to go, set to return in March. I know a lot of fans are really excited to see what she can do. It's a nice matchup with Jennifer Maia, too, there. Just how's she been looking on this road back from the injury to this fight, and what could the fans expect when she returns?
She's been looking amazing. She's been in the lab with Eddie Baracco. They're working on the stand-up game, getting their pad work in, and she's been doing that ever since she was cleared. So now when she was full-time back in the gym as far as her sparring and then MMA grappling and everything goes, she looked great. So there hasn't been a lot of hiccups. Really for Casey, to be quite honest with you, she loves, she overtrains. So I had to explain to her even on Saturday, I was like, look, sometimes the most important workout of the day is actually your rest. Get some time off, recoup, get your body where it needs to be. but she's always in the gym, whether she's helping out, whether she's here training. She's just a great ambassador to what we do, I think, for the fighters here at Xtreme Couture. So I'm looking forward to see her get back in there. She's just a unbelievable, phenomenal prospect. So being able to fight Jennifer Maia, who in her own right, I believe fought for the title as well, and a woman that's been in the flyweight division for quite some time. It's a great matchup for us.
So here comes a coaching question for you, and I'm not sure if this necessarily relates to Casey or not, but it might just be more of a general question. But essentially, so somebody in like Casey's shoes, for example, she has not fought, obviously, in a meaningful period of time. Injury, of course, reason being. But for any fighter in that scenario, when they have a gap like that, the question of ring rust always comes up. Just what are your takes on that? Because every fighter has a different take on it. Some fighters will say, yeah, they're missing that time does mean something. Other ones say, well, like you were saying, she's in the gym every day working, so maybe that won't be the case. What's just your take on that, and maybe things that you do to try to make sure that ring rust isn't there when somebody returns?
That's a great question, John. And I think that from my experience, the fighters that stay active in the mental capacity of what they're doing in the gym. So, for example, when Casey got injured, the first thing I talked to her about was make sure you're still coming to practices, get your mental reps in, be around the team. There's a lot to be said about the camaraderie. So when a guy gets injured or a girl gets injured, they kind of just fall off the wayside and stay home, and almost they fall in this depression. They're going to do their rehab, they go home, they sit around. Well, with Casey, I think it was important for her to like almost make her an honorary coach, if you will. Hey, come in and watch the sparring rounds. Coach some of the girls, coach some of the, her boyfriend's in here, Ty Gorder. Hey, help coach Ty. Do those things that I think that keep you involved and give you that mental edge. So anytime that I've ever been injured, I always feel like I come back better when I'm getting my mental reps in and I'm staying active in the gym. So no, it's a great point and a great observation. So I think it's very, very important when you suffer an injury to stay involved and stay in the gym.
And that's a great take on that, too. I never even thought about that. Like, all these years, I've always asked the fighter coming off of a layoff about ring rust, but I never even thought about the whole mental thing of just showing up and how big of an aspect that is. And that's a great take on it. And I'm looking forward to seeing now what she does with this whole mental side of it now that you brought that up. And I know you brought up her boyfriend, Ty Gorder. I wanted to ask you about him, too, because I did see, I believe it was on your Instagram, might have been on his as well, but he signed with the United Fight League. And if I'm not mistaken, if I have this correctly, there's healthcare involved with this contract, life insurance involved with this contract. I know we had opened up talking about Francis and about contract negotiations and everything. Is this a future thing? Because this has been an ongoing topic that fighters have been having with different promotions, and there's no union for fighters, and a lot of fighters want to see these things implemented. Is this maybe the right step in the right direction? There's a future for this right now?
I think so. It's like, how are you going to have a competitive edge against the big promotions? And I think you're going to have to step outside the comfort zone and maybe break the mold of what some of these promotions are doing. So incentivizing these fighters, saying like, hey, look, we're going to give you a piece of the revenue share. The more that you can work and make this promotion go better or bigger, then, hey, we're going to give you a piece of those, the incentives. Here's some insurance. Here's a 401k. Give these fighters some stuff that maybe other promotions aren't thinking about or doing, and try to break the mold. I think you're gonna get more fighters involved because it's a level of sweat equity that they've never been accustomed to.
All right, so now to end, I have two more people I want to ask you about in particular. Let's start with Miesha Tate, longtime fan favorite, former UFC bantamweight champion. She obviously made the return to the UFC. Anything in play here for 2023? What's the latest on Miesha?
That's a good question. Miesha's the kind of fighter where I didn't even know she was thinking about coming back in the last time, and then I get a phone call from her and she's like, "Hey, I think about making a comeback. We're going to be in the gym and try to see how my body, after having a baby, after having two babies, as a man, we never think about what the implications mean on a female body." So for her to come back and then listen to some of these things that she was going through, it's amazing that she was able to make a comeback and do such a great job. So after the Lauren Murphy fight, we sat down and talked, and she said she wasn't too sure on what she wanted to do. And I told her, hey, take some time, focus on Johnny. I know Johnny was looking to fight, focus on the family. And if this is something that's still burning inside, then we'll go back to the drawing board and we'll figure out what we want to do. If she wants to fight at 35 again or stay down at 125. So the options are endless with Miesha. You just never know with her. She's always in the gym. She's always training, so if she wants to get back in there, I'm sure she'll do great.
Yeah, and she's great with a lot of stuff outside the cage too, so I'm sure there's a lot of big things on her horizon. Another person that I wanted to ask you about is Brittney Palmer. Brittney, of course, I'm sure everybody already knows, but if they don't, Brittney is a UFC Octagon girl. I got to interview her, I'm trying to think maybe 3 years ago. It was after one of her Ring Girl of the Year awards, and she's really great, a great representative of the sport. She's so knowledgeable with it, and one of the things that's cool is she actually will come to your gym and she'll hit some pads, she'll get some workouts in. What's Brittney like inside the gym there? Do you think she could actually kick some ass?
Yeah, I think so, man. I love her. So I'll know if she's, mad or going through something in her personal life, because she'll hit me up like the night before, like, I got to come hit some pads, so she's offloading something. But, she's a good friend of mine, man. I've known her for a few years now. Just a great colleague, but also somebody that I think that really understands and knows the space of MMA very well. And, just not just another pretty face and a ring card girl. She actually wants to learn the nuances of, MMA and the striking and things like that. So just a great person. I love having her in the gym. Just somebody that you're always going to be cheering for sure.
So far, this interview has been filled with a lot of big names that any MMA fan is definitely well aware of. Let's talk about some other fighters maybe that we aren't aware of. Is there anybody to keep an eye on this year that maybe is in a regional scene that might be getting that call up, or maybe somebody that has just gotten into one of the bigger promotions that's ready to make a big spark? Who are some people to keep an eye on?
Oh, I got quite a few names for you. So one of them's Puni Pagoa, Puni Braden. He fights for LFA. One of our Hawaiian kids, just he's been here for quite a while. He's one of Brad Tavares' like little brother guys. Moved out from Hawaii, and he's been a part of the gym for quite some time. He's doing a lot of great things in LFA. We have Kobe Fair. He actually moved out from Ohio. He's been a part of the gym for a while. I believe he's 2-0 now as a pro. Both finishes. Jake Shields, prodigy guy. Just ground and pound. We have a saying here: "Make ground and pound great again," and that's Kobe, man. He's an unbelievable athlete. Then we have Mateus Camilo. He'll be fighting, I think, for Fury first week of February. And now this kid is like, I'll tell guys, if you're trying to go light, do not go with Mateus. Mateus is going to try to knock your head off. And his sparring rounds are must-see TV. So he's another kid, stands out. And then Mansoor, Abdul Malik. Mansoor is another kid, 2-0. Prospect, one of Brian Butler's guys, wrestled at University of Maryland, had a first round 40-second head kick knockout, so he can do it all. He was actually out helping Kelvin Gastelum for his last camp, so he'll be back in the gym. Be ready for this kid to be making a scene, tearing it up on the local regional scene. So we got some talent in here, man. It's a good thing to be at Xtreme Couture right now. So these kids are giving all the pros fits right now.
All right, so one last final question that I have for you after running through all of this. Just explain for all the fans out there what your schedule has to be like. You have all these fighters on the roster. There's cards every single weekend, or even maybe some that are during the week when it comes to the regional scene. I mean, how do you keep track of everything? Do you ever just like go into your office and just scream because there's so much going on?
Hey, I live by my planner. So I have an hourly planner and a monthly planner, and I just sit down and kind of go over everything. So it looks like February I have the 11th off, and March I have right now. March is completely booked, and April is completely booked. So I write down all my fights, and then I go throughout my day and I write down my hourlies throughout the day. So it helps me keep kind of the day organized and planned on what's coming up and who needs what pad sessions I have, what practices are going on. For a while, I just go off the top of my head, and I was pretty good at knowing that stuff. My wife gets on me about like planning ahead for the future, because she never knows where the hell I'm at. So, yeah, man, it's a day-by-day battle for me.
Well, February 11th being the only off day for the first quarter of 2023, you better enjoy that day. Hopefully it's nice and relaxing for you there. Really appreciate the time that you gave us today, and squeezing this in with that tight schedule too. Really appreciate it. Just last thing before you head out, if you have any social media that you want to plug, or anything going on with the gym coming up that needs to be plugged, take it away. Floor is yours.
Yeah, just you want to follow me on Instagram. It's Eric_XCMMA. I think both of them same Twitter handle as well. So if you have any questions or thoughts or anything like that, give me a follow, hit me a DM, and I'll be happy to answer.
All right, guys, there you have it. That was the latest coming out of Xtreme Couture. Thanks again to Coach Eric Nicksick making the time for this interview and answering all the questions about all those great fighters out of that gym there. So really appreciate it, and I appreciate everyone that tuned in to watch today's interview. Do me a favor, if you guys like today's interview, make sure you guys go to the bottom to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. And make sure you guys have your tabs on MyMMANews.com. Go to our social media pages, give us a like and a follow on there if you want to find me on Instagram or Twitter. I'm at John Eric Poli. We'll see you later, everybody.